Hello, my lovely listener. I welcome you after a minute or two of not being here and just realizing that my window is open, so apologies for any noises as usual. And I was having a lot of thoughts about dying this weekend, especially because it's been a hard month. I know that there is lots and lots of movement on the sky, and if you were listening to my podcast before, I am believer in astrology, and actually there was an amazing podcast on a YouTube episode of Steve Jude. I will link him or I will just mention his name in the description. Steve Jude is an astrologer, and he talks a lot about how planets are aligning and what it means. He's interested in in politics and in current affairs, and he's quite pragmatic and he's quite structured, and he's a very obviously deep thinker, but also not so dreamy kind of spirituality word person. He actually has been astrologer for a long time, and he has got quite scientific approach, but also is an astrologer. So the astrology as a science, I would say, is smirk of many people, meaning that people just laugh when you ask them what sign star are you, what is your birth chart and things like this, and some people don't believe it. And the way he explained this, how the planet influences us, the way how he got emotional when he went to Galileo's grave or place where it's burial, where he went to specific places in Europe, and I think outside he's doing documentary, and how those ancient towns and places are built on the basis of astrology. I cannot explain this, but he was explaining it very well. And this is just something that I would send anyone who doesn't believe in astrology, just to show that there was something more. There was something more to how people and why and what way people settled there and set up the cities thousands of years ago before Christ. So BC, how those places were set up and what was the meaning of certain spots in the city. So he was talking something about the degrees and about the entrances to the city, and how perfectly was aligned with certain planetary alignments. And that was done when people didn't know much about, or didn't have knowledge that we have now. I think, or maybe I might be mistaken, that people don't think about astrology when they make decisions, because I've heard that each and every politician has got astrologer with them. And for example, the US election is happening in this kind of very important time when there are major planetary movements as well. And it's just, if you observe history, it just goes like this throughout the history. Very specific events aligning with very specific astrological setups on the sky. So don't know why I was talking about this, but I wanted to say, but it was really interesting, so just came up, so I guess it's important. And I don't talk from the script, so anything that comes up is there. But just wanted to say something about my weekend. First, I was in a cinema, and the movie of my choice was The Room Next Door. And amazing movie. I really liked it, just because of fashion and interior design, and just a really good visual pleasure that was with this movie. So Julianne Moore and Tilda Swinton, very established actresses and in a certain age, so mature ladies. It feels like you don't really see that a lot. I mean, maybe haven't been to the cinema for some time, but maybe it's true, or maybe I'm just looking. It's just my view. Anyway, I really love the costumes. I really love the colors, the kind of April coming, winter and spring connection, the nature, the buildings, the architecture there, beautifully portrayed. And the motive of dying. First of all, before I go into the motive of dying, there was, for me, apart from these visuals, there was something that I obviously know and is mentioned a lot about the femininity. The movie was focused on two feminine, strong characters, and one of them was a war reporter who would spend her life, yes, reporting on war, and wasn't really happy with the way her motherhood went. She had a daughter. I won't tell you about the whole movie. I'm just saying just a couple of things that I just think are important in terms of dying and spirituality and death. So, but the first of things is she was a war reporter. War is about sacrificing, dying, fighting, horror, drama. And what they were talking about was that war is run by men. And bloody hell, I agree with that so much. I mean, the world was never run by women. We don't know how the world would look like if women ran it. And we don't know what would happen if they were taking positions of presidents and premiers, because it's always men. And that's what Steve Jude was saying, so maybe that's why it's this correlation. It's always this middle-aged men or older men who kind of have the power, have control, and are so greedy for more control, more power, and are really brainwashing everyone around to be a subject of this, and sending innocent people into war where they are dying. And this is a picture that we kind of see all the time. And no matter on which side you are, war is always run by men. So this is kind of the first thing. And from what Steve Jude was saying, and I'm just simplifying things, but that's fine. Just this is my general view on those, which I agree with what the movie and Steve Jude was saying. So Tilda Swinton, yes, in the movie was talking about this, that the wars are run by men, and that she was an observer and she had to be one of them. She had to become a man. And Tilda Swinton, if you know, is very masculine, has got a very masculine face, a short cut hair, although when she was in the movie kind of driving around the war zones, she was portrayed as with longer hair. But in the main movie, she had short hair, very skinny, very slim. So kind of a woman attribute, females attribute like maybe fuller breast or hips, totally not there. Whether Julianne Moore, yes, she was very feminine in this movie. So almost like a feminine masculine opposition with these two women. And yes, and I agree on that. And it brings me such an anger. I had to work a bit with anger as well. So anger with, I don't agree on to something. I don't agree to this. I feel hopeless, and I am thinking, what's the meaning of that? And this is what I was thinking about this fact that this is run by men. In this movie, Tilda Swinton is dying, and she basically asks Julianne Moore to accompany her. And the act of dying in this movie and the choice is portrayed really beautifully. And I kind of follow this up with this mindset, and I went to Highgate Cemetery in London. If you ever visit London, I highly recommend. Is especially now in autumn, is so in fall, it is just such a good place for contemplation, for thinking about meaning, for thinking about death and dying and who you are and why you are here and what do you mean, and are you going to be remembered, and are you going to be by yourself, die alone, or you going to be surrounded by people. And while I was wandering around the graves and looking at the descriptions on the graves, some of them really draw my attention. For example, let's say John Smith, and then his date of birth and his date of death, and then the description was lawyer, should have been a marine biologist. Or another, I think, said always live in wonder, and another said something about the discovering or uncovering the veil and what lies under the veil. So obviously very spiritual quotes and very spiritual meaning of those things, and it just takes a half an hour or an hour wandering around those graves and looking at those descriptions, what people have, to obviously make you think about your own life and what are you doing now to kind of go to this end, because this end is going to happen for all of us, and no one is immune to that. And I also think that it doesn't matter for the death how we remember them, what we think about them, what we put on their graves. Is more for us, and to remember ourselves while we are still on this side of the veil. And also, I think that the graves and the cemetery is just like a portal on the other side, but it's just for us like a symbol that there is something out there. I strongly believe that, and I think that ultimately spirituality, that's what spirituality is in the nutshell. Believing that there is something out there, and that we are not just the body, and we are not just humans. And I said it before, it's something that Aaron Doughty loves to say, I just steal it from him, that we are eternal spiritual being having a human experience. And this is the grave is just the end of this experience, which is so short, which is very profound, but also just one thing out of million other things that the spiritual beings us are. And this is the choice, and we making the choices over and over and over again in our life. And one of the choice is also what Tilda Swinton was doing, and this is obviously a big question, and everyone should answer this question themselves. Tilda was very sick, and she just she has taken a specific decision for herself. And obviously it's not a choice for everyone, and you might agree or disagree, whatever it is, but nothing to disagree that the sickness and the illness strips you down a little bit, or not even a little bit, strips you down from your humanity and strips you down from this experience. However, the you in there, the part of you that is human, is supposed to have this experience one way or another. And the choices we get, and I was talking about the choices anyway, and I'm just trying to be a little bit careful here because it is social media, it is the word that stay and is being said out there, so I don't want to say things that people could understand differently. But I just want to say that yes, she's made this choice, and this was her choice, and this had to do with being here or not being, and it was shown in a very beautiful way. And it made me think about, would I have a person who would stay with me next door? And it really even wasn't next door, and I'm giving a little bit of a spoiler, but it doesn't really matter for this movie. It wasn't even, it's just about someone that you have in mind, that you are close to, and how important this excuse me, how important this someone being close to you is for human beings. And this is because we are also a part of God, or the eternal spirit, the eternal love, whatever you want to call it, the universe. And we are part of ourselves. So this is innate with humans, to wanting this connection, to feeling like they want to be connected with someone. And I think for me, the fear of dying alone is very strong as well. And I felt it a lot this weekend. But also I felt such a knowledge, and I knew deep down when I was walking around those graves that there is something, that I didn't even have a 1 inch of doubt that there is something out there, and it's not something, it's just the universe, and it's continuum, and it does not end there. And the cemetery looked so beautiful, like a portal where the leaves were falling down and the sun was beaming through the branches of the trees, with different colors. And it was the end of autumn now, very soon, or just middle of autumn, but again a portal to the nature going asleep, a portal to the trees and plants kind of partially dying. And I felt it so deeply in me that this is just a process, this is just a journey, how they like to say. This is just a part of a never-ending circle of life and rebirth and death and rebirth and remembrance, but also forgetting. And this is something like, it's really hard to describe, but if you listen to yourself deep, in a deep quietness and understanding, looking at those graves, or maybe sitting there, if you find yourself there, which I really recommend, and try to choose a really beautiful space, because I think that beauty brings us calmness and brings us the same, like with this movie, because it was shot in such a beautiful way, and everything was clean and everything was calming, and the ladies were dressed really beautifully. it really gives us this calmness and gives us this kind of security. It's not the same as looking at war. Although these are the same things, it's the same dying, it's the same the ceasing of being in your body, but because it's in a different environment, then it's obviously very difficult for us to understand and for us to almost appreciate as something out of beauty. And yeah, there was this poem. I won't tell you the poem now, but it was something about the snow falling for alive and on the people alive and on the death, and it's just falling on all of us, making us and us being a part of the ones who have died, and us, our children, our family, carrying us with them. And yes, and this just brings a continuity of the death and rebirth and so on and so on. And yes, and also the nature shows that as well. So I think that helped you if you had questions like this. And I speak to you soon. Bye bye.